Good morning, everyone. How are you all? I hope you're well. Fantastic. Piers Hanley, Director and CEO of TIFF. Good to see you all here this morning for the repeat screening of Olivier Assayas' Double Vie Nonfiction. Thank you. I'd like to start out by acknowledging that this morning's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. And we're very grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. This film is eligible for the Gross People's Choice Award. Please do vote, tiff.net/vote. Olivier has been coming to this festival since his first feature, which was made in 1986. And I think we've shown virtually every single one of his films over that period. Started his career as a young critic, and if you're interested in seeing him being interviewed in the Margareta von Trotte's film on Ingmar Bergman that we're showing in our doc section, I think, you'll get a sense of Olivier's critical insights. He's made so many wonderful films over the years that we've had here in Toronto: Clouds of Sils Maria, Irma Vep, Summer Hours. This is a film that, when I saw it in Paris, I absolutely fell in love with it. I mean, I really like Olivier's work, but this, to me, was actually one of his finest films for all kinds of reasons. Deals very much with today, with the digital world in particular, the world that you and I and all of us are living in the most substantial kind of way. It's a conversation piece, as you see, very intelligently done, with a huge sense of dollop of comedy and wit. So we're delighted to have Olivier with us this morning. Please join me in welcoming Olivier Assayas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I should have loved to introduce Nev instead of him introducing me today. Because I just want to tell you how grateful I am for showing this film today, but also for your support, your warmth, your understanding of my work. You know, it's filmmakers depend much more than is acknowledged of film festival in the sense that the respect we all filmmakers have for someone like Piers, who has been steadily programming great movies in Toronto with such a great eye, such a great taste, and such a human understanding of what artists, what filmmakers try to do, is something that is invaluable. And I think it's the existence of a film festival in Toronto, the fact that today, on a Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning, there's a full house here. You know, it's something that doesn't happen everywhere. It needs also, to build. It has to be built. It has to be. It depends on the capacity of giving and of expressing your passion for cinema to your audience. And when you come to a film festival like Toronto, where movies are loved, it gives you not only a sense of validation, it just gives you a sense that what you're doing is worth something, that you can share it for all the good reason, and it's not just how many tickets you have been selling in a cinema or something. It's much more than that. Piers, I will miss you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's Piers told you basically all that you need to know about this film. I wrote it as a film of ideas, in a sense that sometimes filmmakers are a little bit shy of using discourse, debate inside their film, because it's supposed to be boring or the audience doesn't get it or something. I mean, I am of the completely opposite idea, in the sense that I've been doing a lot of discussions with the audience after the screenings of my films through the years, and I've noticed, you know, and I've seen that audiences are interested by the ideas in a film, that it's something that is stimulating, and that's what cinema is about. It's about sharing issues, sharing questions, and eventually, I don't think that films provide answers, and certainly not easy answers, but they are just part of the conversation. They can you know, help us to make sense of the chaos we live in, sometimes by generating chaos. That's what I've been trying to do in this film. So, okay, so see you later. I will be trying to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for staying for the Q&A. My name is Adam Cook. I'm from the festival programming team. Just a reminder before we begin, if you have a question, please raise your hand, speak as clearly as you can. I'll repeat it so everyone can hear. Now welcome back to the stage, Olivier Assayas.
Thank you.
Now, before we go to the audience, I'll kick things off. Could you tell us what inspired you to make a film set around the world of publishing?
I don't know. It's been with me for quite a while, really, like a few years, maybe a decade. I don't know. I mean, I had this notion of a movie about a publisher who is confronted with the fading of the traditional values of publishing, and also who has to reinvent himself in a new age or something like that. And I had even written a screenplay, and it never happened. I wrote it at the time for Daniel Auteuil and for Isabelle Huppert, and I don't know. I mean, you know, after the screenplay faded, but the idea stayed with me. Like the character kind of stayed with me. So at some point, I got back into that screenplay. I read it, and it's not like I hated it, but it felt extremely alien to me, and it felt like stuff I had kind of outgrown. So I said, oh, okay. So if the idea stays with me, it means I have to somehow get it out of my system, and But if I want to deal with it, I need to invent a completely different approach, less narrative and maybe more based on ideas, because ultimately what I wanted to convey were a few ideas I had on the subject, or very confused ideas, very conflicted and contradicted ideas. But still, I kind of felt there was material for something that could be eventually a comedy. So,
well, that was my next question was, how did it grow into a comedy?
Well,
if it wasn't like that originally.
You know, the thing is that I started writing and enjoying myself writing very long scenes of dialogue, which is something I had never really done. You know, instead of cutting the scenes after the people have said the few useful lines to the narrative, I kind of let the camera roll. You know, I kind of, meaning in the process of writing, I said, what happens if I push the scene as far as I can, and you know, just let the scene end when I've basically run out of ideas. In terms of writing, it was extremely enjoyable, but I was not sure there was a movie there, you know, maybe a play, maybe a book or whatever, you know. And it's only pretty late in the process that I realized that actually I had characters, the characters generated some sort of empathy, and ultimately it ended up being some sort of comedy of manners based on the background of the transformation in the publishing world, but ultimately it's very much about the transformation within the world. You know, it's something that affects everybody and not just the publishing.
I could ask you questions all day, but I'll open it up to the audience. Yes.
Yeah, this may sound weird, but do you consider this film either a kissing cousin or even a mirror image of Demon Lover?
The question is about seeing this film as a cousin or, you know, a companion piece to Demon Lover.
It's I think that all the movies I've made have like underground connections. I think they all happen in the same world. So I could say that somehow when I was making Demon Lover, I had more ideas about the change. I felt there was a lot of dark things lurking, that it was dangerous in many ways. Now now I don't know. I mean, you know, it just has happened. It has happened. So we have to deal with it. I have to deal with it and adapt to it in a certain way. So now I think it's more interesting to deal with the changes it generates and try to understand them as and not you know, just maybe not be not be involved in the violence of it, or you know, putting the violence of it aside.
Yes, on the side.
Could you explain a little bit about? I really loved the movie. Was phenomenal. Thank you very much for doing that. When she mentioned about getting Juliette Binoche to do the. Never seen that.
So it was a comment about the Juliette Binoche meta joke towards the end there.
It's just my wicked self. I had fun writing it. You know, I came up with it writing, and I just laughed aloud. and then when Juliette read it, she told me she felt she was hearing me laugh aloud, and so it stayed in the film.
Yes, go ahead.
Now, with the online book world flattening out, does this change your film?
Well,
With the online book world flattening out, does this change your film?
absolutely, but it's pretty. Yes, it's pretty much what the film is about. I mean, you know, it's the film. It's in terms of its narrative, it takes place in I don't know, maybe a few months. But in reality, in terms of the ideas involved, it's a much longer span. It kind of chronicles this moment when publishing thought it was going to move full digital, and the moment when it realizes that the audience is not following. The audience wants books. People are buying books. Selling books is picking up here, there, everywhere. So so in that sense, what I was interested in is that on one side you feel the brutality of the change, and then you gradually realize that change is not linear. That it has much more complex twists and turns, and so it's things that we shouldn't just swallow up as you know, irresistible facts, but we have to preserve our own ethics, our own morals, and I think that the publishing world has been pretty good at doing that. Well, I think the flattening of the online reading is something that, you know, happened in the 2015, 16, something like that. Or am I wrong? Oh, the film? No, maybe it's not that precise. I mean, but we can say it takes place between 2008, 9, and possibly 2015 and 2016. I mean, in terms of its not in terms of its actual timeline, but in terms of the ideas involved.
I think I saw a hand in the balcony. Yeah.
It's such a dialogue-based movie. How do you work with the actors? How much freedom do you give them?
Because it's such a dialogue-based film, what is it like working with the actors? How much freedom do you give them?
I give actors as much freedom as I can. I mean, it's really and I give them as much space for reinventing, nuancing the lines as possible. But also it depends on the actors. Some actors are happy with that, and some actors don't really want it that much. You know, for instance, in this film, Guillaume Canet, he's comfortable with having his line, and he's not so fond of moving around. I mean, he can adapt to other actors improvising, but it's not really his thing. Same thing with Christa Terret, you know, who plays like the digital expert. She needs to absorb the lines and find her own pace, and you know, and if you ask her to adapt, it will put her off balance. But with Juliette, with Vincent McCain, with Nora Hamzaoui, who are who have more of a comedy streak, they use the space I give them. They use the freedom I give them. When I started making these films, I thought it's going to be a lot more improvisation, really. I mean, here there are a few specific moments, but it was in the process of making the film that I realized that also the writing was, my own writing was more precise than what I thought, and because of course a lot of the comedy elements depend on the timing and the pacing of the lines and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff that feel improvised, but ultimately are not that improvised.
Yes, in the white shirt.
It's of course it is.
So the question is about whether you consider the film to be auto-fiction, but maybe you could also talk about the idea of incorporating that into the movie.
No, not at all. You know, it's fiction. It's actually it's actually novelistic. No, it's I have nothing to do with those characters. I've never cheated on anyone. Never had to deal with the digital world, whatever. No, it's. I think that yes, no. I mean, I think that all fiction has some sort of autobiographical core, because when you are expressing an idea, when you're representing an emotion, where you are expressing a feeling, the reality of it is within yourself. It's things that you have gone through. You have to understand them from inside. So in a certain way, I could answer that yes, it's autobiographical in the sense that every single character in the film at different moments. But I've experienced those conversations. I understand those feelings, and from all sides, from all angles, in a certain way. But I think it's sometimes in fiction works. Sometimes reality, the autobiography, is very near the surface. Sometimes it's further deep. It's you have to dig a bit, but usually. I have it in mind when I'm writing, and I completely forget about it when I'm shooting, because all of a sudden it becomes something else in a different, in a different setting with actors who embody characters who are very different from them. So it's blurred in the end.
Yes, go ahead.
The pacing, the speed of the dialogue of the film, were you very specific about that? Did the actors speak quickly as they were, or was that edited?
Question is about the precision of the pacing of the film and the dialogue.
Well, it's both. It's both in the writing, both in the editing, and of course in the acting. It's because to me it was extremely challenging to make a movie entirely based on dialogue. Where you, as a director, you don't have much to hold on to, so you're completely dependent on the energy. And I think the way I approached the film is I thought that the movie needed to have some kind of speed and energy and way of moving to keep the audience interested in a certain way. I think. I think when you get into a pace of comedy, I suppose, things have to go fast, to move fast.
Yes, in the front.
Thanks very much. I wanted to ask you a question about politics in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Put a character in who works in the political sphere, but you really don't bring politics into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know if you thought perhaps after writing the script, by the time you were filming, you thought maybe you should put more politics in and decided against it.
Question is about deciding to use politics as a peripheral element in the film.
I think that in the film, my position in terms of I make a case for reality-based politics, truth-based politics, I guess. In the sense that the character who generates the most empathy, I hope, in the film is Leonard's wife, because she is struggling to keep a hold on reality. She's not into political communication. She's not into just into the media circus of politics. But she very genuinely defends a position where politics should be about making a better world and being concerned with the reality of people on the actual ground, to use one of the phrases in the film. So I didn't want to be much more specific than that, but in the sense that it seems that we live in a world where where politics and politicians lose the connection with fact, with the and it's I don't have to point fingers, but I'm sure you understand what I mean.
We have time for just one last question. Yes, in the back corner. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly Elaine Danielson might be Jewish. And then, of course, the wonderfully wicked comedy involving the White Ribbon. It reminded me of Jerry Seinfeld. I love that. It reminded me of Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry thought it was a scandal by making out during Schindler's List. What did you do about the Jerry Seinfeld?
Question. Let's see if I can break that down.
Sorry,
The question is about the Jewish elements of the film, the white ribbon joke, and if you were familiar with a gag from Jerry Seinfeld.
And also the names of the characters.
Yeah, I know. No, I didn't know about Jerry Seinfeld. So that's the closest I can give you to a clear answer. I don't know. I'm personally half Jewish. My father was Jewish. It's kind of present in a certain way in my movies. I'm not sure exactly how, but it's certainly part of me. No, there was no specific intent. No.
And on that note, that's all the time we have.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. Don't forget to vote for the Girls People's Choice Award. Thank you so much, Olivier.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. I'll get a go.